Thank you for joining us wherever you are. This podcast episode is brought to you by the Old Ways Actual Play team. This actual play uses the 7th edition Call of Cthulhu tabletop role-playing game rules by Chaosium. This actual play is performed by adults and in an adult setting. While we try very hard to stick to language for all ages, listeners should know that this podcast may include mature themes. All content, including names, places, events, companies, and etc., that may bear resemblance to entities living or dead, is strictly coincidental. My name is Michael Diamond, and for tonight's game, I will be your keeper. Thank you for joining us again on another episode of the Old Ways Podcast. I'm your keeper, Keeper Michael, and we return to Horror on the Orient Express, where we are coming out of a cave system. And if there was light, which there isn't because it's evening, it would be shining on most of us. So at the top of the show, as we like to do, we'd like to thank you, the listener, and especially you, the Patreon supporter. If you've not had a chance to check out what we offer on Patreon, you can at patreon.com/The Old Ways Podcast. And now we'll begin with introductions. To my right.
Hi, this is Mike, and I play James Robert Fraser, who is currently averting his eyes and desperately trying to cover Miss Margaret Bellinger's modesty.
Indeed you are, sir. Good luck with that. And to Mr. Fraser's right.
Hi, this is Rena. I play Lady Elizabeth Fitzroy, and I don't have a medallion anymore.
No, you've given your precious up for something more important. Although, what was that? At the end of the table.
Hi, this is Giles, and I'm playing Simon Griffith, and Simon really just wants to take a nap right now, if y'all don't mind.
I think a nap is truly in order for Mr. Griffith after all of the tribulations he faced in the cave system earlier. To Mr. Griffith's right.
Hi, this is Miranda, and I play Maggie Bellinger, and the light shines on Maggie where the light usually doesn't shine.
Yes, that's very true. You were, we'll just say, single-mindedly after something in the cave system, and close or not, you've accomplished that. So take a bow. And last but most certainly not least.
I'm Martin, and I'm playing Richard Courtney, and Richard's just not sure what's real and what's make-believe anymore. He's seen dragons and knights, and there's some naked maiden. I mean, it's just all blurring into some fuzzy haze. Who knows?
Yes, it's like a decadent novel from the medieval era, complete with Tommy gun. So before we get things started, I'm going to welcome us all back to the table with an investigator luck refresh. And so we will return to our introduction order quickly, and we will ask Mr. Fraser to make a luck roll.
Righty. My luck's currently 55, which is not too bad. See if we can improve it. I'm using my new little dice shaker. Here we go. 34. And that is a successful luck roll.
Well, we'll add 5 points to it.
Thank you very much indeed.
All right, Lady Elizabeth.
I have 55 luck because I spent a lot of luck in the last 2 episodes because I wasn't going to let Miss Bellinger take my medallion from me. And I rolled a 71, so I failed that roll.
All right, let's see what we have. So that is 12 luck for you.
Marvelous.
Very good. Mr. Griffith.
Let's see. I currently have 30 luck. You know, my happy number. And I passed that with a 21.
Well, that's all right. I will give you 8 points of luck anyway. So
thank you very much.
Enjoy. Miss Bellinger.
Yeah, Maggie currently also has 30 luck, so we'll see how I do here. And Maggie failed 86 over 30.
Oh, yes. Okay, so 12 points of luck for you.
Ooh, I can do some damage with that luck.
You can. Professor Courtney.
So Richard has a luck of 47 at the minute. And I rolled an 80.
Fantastic. Oh, I will give you 19 points of luck, Professor.
Woohoo!
You are on the top of the list. And now you'll have more luck to spend when things go awry. Wonderful. So we're going to keep focus here for just a second to clear a few cobwebs, because there are some threads we need to make sure we don't lose track of. And so I'm going to start with you, Professor, in this cave system. An awful lot of your perceptions during this hubbub, this situation where there was multiple factions and combat and guns and people cutting one another and all sorts of, well, just say fun in the water. You had an awful hard time understanding the totality of what went on, but that's because your perceptions were continuing to shift from this world to somewhere else. You saw an awful lot that everybody else didn't pick up on. Some of the things that you saw were the threads in this space, especially, that went up and along this rock face that made up the central portion of what everyone seemed to be trying to climb. And I guess the best way to say it in your mind would be that there were energy sources at the top of that hill. There were sort of these shapes that were made up of the same sort of thread-like energy, but were also gleaning what they could from people in those spaces that were nearby. And you were pretty transfixed during the time as that passed. And you only really begin to snap out of it when water from this cold water from this cave floor is splashed nearby, and sort of that spattering of wet cave water gets on your face and breaks the whatever reverie you were in. And that's going to bring you sort of face to face with some realities, right? Several of your fellow investigators are harmed, including Mr. Griffith, who does not look like they are in a good way in any way, shape, or form. And, most of, if not all of them, are completely soaked. And then there is this matter of one of them missing, for the most part, clothes. I know that Fraser picked up Miss Bellinger's clothes in the water, and he has also sort of handed over his coat, if memory serves correctly, as well. You did try to. That said, that is sort of what you come face to face with, Professor, is the entirety of your team coming towards you, looking as if they're fleeing, and that's really when your ears pick up on the rumbles over top, and you start seeing pieces of stonework, cave system itself beginning to crack overhead.
Oh, Richard will just book it down the corridor, the tunnel, just shocked. Probably running away from everybody else as much as he is the rumbling cave that's falling.
It's quite possible. It doesn't take as long, obviously, to get out of the cave system, except for a couple of our investigative team. Now, the reason I say that is because a couple of them are over size 65. And so they're going to have to make dexterity rolls. And I'm speaking to you, Simon, and obviously you as well, Mr. Fraser, are going to have to make rolls to shimmy your way through. And then I won't belabor the point and ask who is going in front of and or behind Miss Bellinger. I just think we'll leave that portion off camera for the moment. We'll assume that someone is, though.
Mr. Fraser will take up the rear with his eyes closed.
Very well, sir. You will be the last one in.
Would you like me to make a dexterity roll then?
I would. And Simon as well.
Is this the same tunnel that I got stuck in last time?
You bet it is.
Ah, smashing. Well, let's hope that I don't have to take off any more of my clothes to get through it this time, because that's a sight nobody wants to see. That is a very healthy success. 19 under 60.
Simon had a 23 under 80.
Oh, very good. All right. So, Simon, you are able to get through without getting stuck. And more importantly, you are able to get through without continuing to injure yourself either.
Simon is also quite disconcerted by Miss Maggie. So he's letting Jim go first.
But Mr. Fraser's going last. And so he's already said that.
So who's going behind Maggie?
He is.
Ah, excellent. I'm in front of Maggie. This is fine. All good.
Very well. The investigative team is able to traverse that tunnel, pressing around still the oddly porous, wet stone here. It's still a little disconcerting.
Can I just ask, is Maggie now a little calmer than she was earlier on when we were thrashing about in the water together?
Almost certainly. I mean, my goal has been achieved.
I will offer my jacket if she wishes to take it.
Yeah, it's gotten... Well, it's actually not drafty. I'm perfectly warm, so I don't need it. But there's a lot of rocks, and I don't want to scrape my beautiful skin. So I will accept it.
Traversing that first section is just one leg of getting out of this long and difficult tunnel system. It does give you the opportunity, though, to, I guess, move about the larger cave system as you move into it with a little bit more assuredness. Some of you have traversed these ways before. I would say, depending upon the direction you take out, Lady Elizabeth, you're a little unfamiliar. You don't really remember going this way. You don't really remember anything much more than the voice that led you here. Everything else is kind of secondary. While we won't, again, belabor any specific roles getting out of the cavern, that now that the investigators have had experience in them, it does take a little time. This is pressed forward, of course, by the fact that the cave is continuing to sort of issue these strange groans, and you're still seeing this shaking on the ground. So there is some, I would imagine anyway, some alacrity that you're putting into your movements to get out. You pass an awful lot of dead bodies, probably more than 5. You stop counting after a while. You just try to focus on getting out. It's really all you can do.
Does it seem like the cave is shaking and trembling, little kind of bits of rock skittering down from the sides, like this whole system is potentially going to collapse, or do we seem to be moving away from the danger area into a more stable kind of place?
Yeah, you do seem to be moving towards a more stable place. Basically, when you get into the long section where Simon and Maggie and the professor had that sort of out-and-out gunfight where you found them, Fraser, when you get into that section, that is basically where the rumbling ceases. You don't feel it anymore. You might hear some things, but there's nothing falling on you anymore.
I think at that point then Fraser will start to move a little more cautiously with his pistol in hand, just in case there are more of these people come to see what's happened to those that are in the system, in the cave system. Better safe than sorry.
If you like, you can all make me listen rolls.
Ooh, an extreme success for Maggie.
Hard success, 18 under 64.
That's just a normal success for me, 42 under 60.
Richard failed with a 67.
Simon failed with a 70.
Yeah, so for Maggie, you obviously hear the people around you, the subsequent noises. As far as picking out anything different, really one of the things that you hear the most is the sound of someone whispering confidences into your ear about how good of a job you've done.
And it's not my normal personal voice that's whispering confidences.
That's correct. And then for Lady Elizabeth's hard success, what you hear is a lot of wind passing through the tunnel. It does sound like there might be whispers on it, but it's not something that you can make out specifically. And eventually, the team reaches the entranceway, being, of course, very cautious, very careful, as I would assume Mr. Fraser's more leading the way here.
I will ask everyone to just hold behind the entryway while I do a little bit of a recce. Peer cautiously out just to see if there is any sign of any movement, any figures or anything like that outside. can we see our car from where we are?
No, it's a little too dark.
But in terms of position, would we be able to see it if it was light, or is it kind of up and round the corner and behind some vegetation or anything like that?
Yeah, basically. It's not, I wouldn't say up around the corner, but it is too far left for you. And it is a bit on a rise. And there is, again, it was parked amongst some trees. So you know where it's at. Okay,
no problem. I will... Here, would you like a spot hidden?
Sure, I would take one.
That's a fail. That's a 92 over 86. I'll spend some luck.
Okay.
6 points of luck.
That's a success. So there doesn't seem to be any movement or signs of difference from the nearby workers' sort of substation, the tourist shack that is used where the original power lines were. There doesn't seem to be any movement from or noise from the space across the field and the rise where the original silhouettes you saw are, which is sort of where your brain goes first. Back left towards your vehicle, towards that rise on the hill where the vegetation is, things seem quiet there. Yeah, everything seems okay.
Come back to the others. Well, there doesn't seem to be anybody outside, so what I'd suggest is that we make our way quickly and quietly back to the car, and from there we're going to have to go back towards the other caves, where this cottage where the fellow Anton lived. We need to pick up Paul and our belongings.
Oh, yes, I'd forgotten about that.
Well, you certainly need some trousers, Professor. Again.
I always need trousers. I seem to have some sort of curse.
Have you considered carrying a spare?
Perhaps the next part of our group we should pick up should be a tailor.
I think that could be a very welcome idea.
I gather in the United States of America, Mr. Griffith, you can bear me out on this, they have a material they call denim, is that correct? It's supposed to be quite hard-wearing.
That'd be correct, Jim. It's often used for overalls and jeans, and I guess you call them pants. But, yeah.
No, we would call them trousers.
No. You don't make trousers out of denim, sorry.
Well, pants are what a gentleman would, or a lady would wear underneath their trousers.
Gentlemen. While this sartorial conversation is very enlightening, we perhaps have more pressing matters to attend to than pressing trousers. So
will I be driving again?
Lady E just sort of looks her up and down very slowly.
Are you comfortable driving in bare feet, Miss Ballinger?
It wouldn't be the first time. I doubt it'll be the last.
Now, Jim, I suppose if you had enough starch, you could iron out a pair of denim pants with trousers, but... was there something else being talked about?
We're now discussing how we might best make our way back to the cottage for our belongings. I think we should... Yes, you're quite right, Your Ladyship. We should focus on the task in hand. Right, well, as I say, quickly, quietly, shall we proceed? And I'll make my way out of the caves.
Very good. You make your way out of the caves carefully and quietly.
Do you require stealth rolls from us?
Nope, not this time.
That's good to know.
You approach the car in the same manner, carefully and quietly. Maggie, your right foot gets a little pins and needly on some of the pathway here. You start losing feeling in it.
I hate when that happens. Kind of like shaking my foot every once in a while.
Professor Courtney, Mr. Griffith, do you know anything about automotive vehicles? I think we should check it over just to make sure it has not been tampered with.
It's not my skill set, Jim. I mean, now, what I can say is why don't you pop the hood? And the least I can do and see if there's a bomb attached anywhere. I have some familiarity with explosives, but I couldn't tell you whether the line's been cut or anything else for the car.
Professor?
Yes, I mean, I can have a look in general mechanical terms. That would be fine. I mean, in terms of car specifics, I mean, how hard can it be? It's just another machine.
Yes, well, let's give it a quick once-over. I'll check to make sure the tyres are in working condition. If you want to double-check the engine, and Simon, yes, indeed, you might want to check if there's been no explosive devices or any booby traps of that kind being rigged. It would be somewhat inconvenient. Go out and have a look over the car, check to see if the tyres have been slashed and that sort of thing, because...
Make your way around the car, testing each one of the tires, making sure they're firm as they're supposed to be. And then I suppose, Simon, you're going to look where specifically?
Simon's going to pop the trunk, pop the hood, look inside, any fuses or detonator caps or anything, and then he's actually going to crawl under the car with a flashlight and see if he can see anything.
And you pop the trunk. There doesn't seem to be anything other than whatever additional things, the sort of adventurer's gear that was stashed in the trunk beforehand. 10-foot poles, rope, spikes, oil lanterns. Most of that was brought into the cave and was used to an effective way. And then, Professor, you're going to check the actual mechanics of the car?
Yeah, so Richard will look around the wheels to make sure that the axles are still firmly secured and so on and so forth.
Alrighty. Everything seems to be in order as far as you all can tell.
Yeah, I was going to say, if Simon is not doing so, I'll suggest that Professor Courtney checks to make sure that none of the cables have been pulled out or nothing's been tampered with in the engine itself to make sure that the car won't start or anything.
You have mechanical repair, so that's good enough.
That's a success. 32 under 40.
Yeah, everything seems to be in working order for the car. Doesn't look like it was bothered at all.
Nothing appears to be untoward. Perhaps we should try and start it. I'm sure it'll be fine.
Yeah, they must not have even seen it here.
Splendid. Well, that's good to know. Shall we then?
I did a fantastic job hiding it.
So it would seem, Miss Bellinger.
Maggie hops in the car. Hops right in the driver's seat.
Now, don't forget, Miss Bellinger, turn the key to battery and retard the spark.
I try to start the car.
Car starts right up.
Oh, there we go. It's all settled.
No problem at all. Absolutely fine.
Okay, so a question I love to ask now is, especially in these situations, is the car is started. Where are you going?
I have a proposition.
Oh, yes, Mr. Fraser. Go ahead.
I suggest that perhaps we make our way back towards the roadblock, unless we can find another way, a side road or a track or something that doesn't have a block on it, in order to make our way back to the cottage. I don't think we've got a decent map of the countryside around here, have we? I can't remember off the top of my head.
No, sir.
What I would posit at that point is we take the car off the road. You can use your excellent skills to secrete it somewhere, and one or two of us will move cautiously towards the roadblock area just to check if it's still there and how many guards might be present. Then we will come back and discuss how we best proceed, whether we perhaps give the guards at the roadblock cause to allow the vehicle to pass through without interfering. And I would perhaps suggest that Mr. Griffin has the ideal tool for that particular job, or whether we drive through and hope for the best.
Oh, like last time. Mr. Fraser, I don't normally suggest returning to the scene of a crime. However, I don't see a better course of action.
Because we don't know any other way of getting back there, and we can't leave our belongings, and we can't leave Paul there. Goodness only knows what he'll face if we do. I'm not sure what other choice we have.
Well, I agree. As long as there are no other better ideas, we will head towards the roadblock.
Fantastic.
Wait a moment. We have a little bit of a run to get back to the farmhouse, and engines get hot. We could put your clothes, Maggie, under the hood. Not on the engine, you understand. They might catch fire, but we could put them around the engine, and they would dry out. By the time we get there, you would be able to reclothe yourself. Basic physics.
What a splendid idea.
Professor Courtney, as a man of science, I would have thought you would be aware of the kind of temperatures a motor engine reaches. I would be very cautious about padding it with flammable material.
Not on the engine, just around the sides. There's a huge volume under the bonnet there, and I'm sure if we were to hang them off the suspension, it would be fine.
I think Fraser just looks at him like he's gone mad.
Well, shall we hit the road then? I feel like we've delayed long enough.
You hit the road.
Let's get the fuck out of here. Now, it's interesting as we drive along. Mr. Griffith, I couldn't help noticing that you were referring to the front and rear of this motor vehicle as the hood and the trunk. Now, this is very much a similar situation to the pants that you were referring to earlier on. In the United Kingdom, we refer to the cover of the engine as the bonnet, and we refer to the rear compartment for storage as the boot. Pants we would use as an abbreviation of the word underpants, which would be a garment worn underneath the trouser or jean or overall.
Well, a bonnet is what a woman wears to keep the sun off her face, and a boot is what I put on my feet when I need to go wading or deep in the mines.
Precisely where the references in the motor vehicle come from. It's the etymology, you see, the etymology of language.
What, you mean the rear of the car where we store our stuff is what I use to go wading in the mines?
The rear of the car is similar to the storage of your foot in a Wellington, for instance, if you are to go fishing of a pleasant Sunday afternoon.
So if I said that the professor was making me angry, I would put my foot in his...
Gentlemen, if we do not get moving, I'm going to stab all three of you.
You're driving along. So, Maggie, you are getting, as it is not terribly far, back towards Trieste, where the checkpoint is. Not terribly far. So I think it's 10 miles or so. So while this banter is going on, sort of in your brain, you get the feeling like you're going to have to deal with what happens at the checkpoint. And it's all fine, well and good that they've been talking about boots and bonnets and Wellingtons, etc. All that is great. But in your head, you're still now hyper-focused on, what am I doing when we get to the checkpoint? And at some point, I'm going to have to get back and get some regular clothes on. Because, first of all, the suit jacket is too big for you. It just doesn't look right.
Well, it's great because it's very covering.
It's very covering. That's true.
So that's fine. It's like a large dress.
Yes. So I guess I'm going to ask you, the player, Miranda, when Maggie gets close to the checkpoint, what is she going to do?
I'm going to follow our original plan and cut the light, squint, and follow the road as best as I can for a little bit further. And then pull off to the side slowly, quietly.
All right. So there is no stealth roll when you're in a car, given how loud motor vehicles are during this time. So what I'm going to ask you to do is make a drive auto roll and determine whether or not the pulling off the side of the road goes as well as you hope it goes.
It doesn't. Because I rolled a 65 over 40.
65 over 40. All right. So...
Now I could push the roll.
You absolutely could push the roll. It is totally within your ability to do so, if you would like to.
I don't want to, I don't want to walk the rest of the way. So
No?
And that's a concern of mine. I don't have shoes on. So I won't push it. I thought about it, but I don't want to walk.
Okay, fair enough. So you pull off or attempt to pull off the side of the road, and the road and the recent rain get the better of the car. And so what happens is as you begin to sort of change the grade that the car is on, it begins to slide to the right. And you, of course, do what you can to bring the car to a slower stop. But when you do, you get this racking pain in your kneecap. And you press down a little harder than you meant to on the brake pedal. And so what happens is that the car continues to slide, and then sort of the tail end begins to shake and jerk in the car, and it begins to rattle, and then you hear a terrifying snap, and then the car lurches into like the side of this off-road area. But you stopped.
Oh, sorry, this old thing, maybe we missed something when we were looking it over. It's been in a barn for so long. My knee hurts terribly.
Never mind. If we need to, we'll push it out of the ditch.
It was probably just one of the poles or the spade or something that's broken. I'm sure it's nothing too bad.
Okay, well, we're here now. Yes, go, Mr. Fraser.
You all stay here. I will move ahead and see what is to be seen. And I will use all my powers of sneakability to shimmy along up towards where the roadblock was and see if it's still there and get a kind of an idea of how many guards might be loitering.
All right. I'll be putting you at disadvantage for the lighting situation.
My stealth roll. Okay, so that is either a hard success, 30 under 69, or with my penalty die, a hard success of 30 under 69.
Fantastic how that's worked out for you. Okay, yeah, interesting. So you begin to move along this space using the ample shadows that are nearby. They are cut a little bit with the lights that the roadblock has up. And these are sort of larger lights that sit on top of this.
I would imagine that being in the dark would make me harder to see.
Yes, right. But the advantage is either for them to see you, given that they have lights, including flashlights, or a disadvantage for you to make the roll. But you've come through that, and you are able to skirt around their lights, and you are able to see that there are now 3 Blackshirts here, and there is a accompanying truck nearby.
Okay, I'm going to try and shimmy around a little bit to see if there are any further Blackshirts in the truck.
That's a spot hidden roll. And because of the light, you will not be at disadvantage for that, because they are providing you light.
That is a 15 under 86, which I believe is an extreme success.
It certainly is. So not any additional Blackshirts in the truck. This truck does appear to be, I guess, a recent addition. You can see where it has pulled off as well. There may be, there's probably catch sight of a few small crates.
Interesting. I'll watch them for a couple of minutes just to get a kind of an idea of their general attitude. Do they seem like they are attentive to their duty, or do they seem like they are bored and not really being as professional and paying as much attention as they maybe should?
Yeah, you probably catch sight of the 2 of them inside this sort of shack that they've set up as a roadblock. They look to be playing cards. There might be a bottle of something on the table there that they're sort of passively enjoying. And then the third one seems to be outside the shack smoking, and that's likely only because there's only space for 2 people to sit inside.
I'll take all that in, and then I will sneak back to rejoin the others.
Easily done.
Right, well, there's 3 of them. They don't seem to be particularly attentive to their duty, playing cards, whiling away the time. There's also a truck there. Is the truck just parked just off the road?
Yeah, it's not far. It's near the shack, but you'd probably say about 10, 15 yards from the shack.
Is there anything actually... Is there a barrier across the road of any kind?
There is. It looks like it's newly set up. because the last one was blown through by Miss Bellinger.
And we've got the dents in the car to prove it. There's a truck just off the road with some sort of crates of something in it. I'm not quite sure what. Weapons, possibly.
Oh, are you suggesting that we take that truck, then we leave the car here?
Not necessarily, no. But I do think that we have a couple of options here. We could attempt to subdue the guards. There's 5 of us, there's 3 of them. We could attempt to bribe the guards, although I'm not quite sure how much cash money we have on us at the moment. Professor, I don't know if you carry any spending funds in your pockets.
I do. I'm quite concerned with the idea of sort of going head-to-head with them. I mean, I know this sounds a little ruthless, but perhaps Simon can use his large gun.
Well, I wasn't thinking so much of actually engaging in combat with them, but more sneaking up, surprising them, and overpowering them in that sense, tying them up, and then making good our escape.
Well, my concern, you see, is that we will be gone from the checkpoint for some time, and we need to come back. So, unfortunately, I think that whilst that may appear to be the kinder option, we might find ourselves in a sticky situation. If we were to come back and they had freed themselves, or they'd managed to summon assistance, we'd be well and truly stuck.
What exactly are you proposing, Professor Courtney?
Might I interject here? I kind of get what the professor's saying, and just to sum it all up and go American instead of English, I agree. We should just kill them and hide the bodies.
I think we should take the bodies with us.
I'm sorry. Wait a minute. Are the 2 of you seriously proposing we simply murder these 3 people?
They're Blackshirts.
Yeah, quite. I mean, they've killed thousands.
Murder is murder.
They're fascists.
Wait, would you feel better if they took some shots at us first, Mr. Fraser?
Quite. I mean, it's just the logical way to look at it. I mean, we can either get shot and then shoot, or we can just shoot.
We are not at war. If you are seriously proposing that we sneak up on these men to simply kill them, then I will want no part of it. It is one thing to be fighting for your life, and to kill or be killed is quite another. It is quite another to cold-bloodedly murder somebody. And frankly, I'm quite shocked that you would even propose such a course of action.
Jim, Blackshirts in Milan wanted to do us in. Blackshirts in Venice wanted to do us in. Blackshirts in Trieste wanted to do us in. I would say we are at war in this situation. Let's just get this done, get our stuff, and get in out of Italy.
No, Simon. You can rationalize this as well as you like. You can say, oh, they might have killed us, so we made sure we killed them first, because surely they would have killed us because they're Blackshirts. They're human beings, man.
I'm quite sure they'd kill us. If we were to walk up there now, I will make a bet with you. If you were to walk up there now, you'd probably be killed.
All right, then. I'll take you at your word. I will walk up there right now, and I will see if they kill me. How about that? And then you will be proved right, and you may kill them.
Well, I mean, if they start taking shots at you,
does that satisfy you? Does that soothe your morality, whatever kind of morality you might have? Does that make it right?
This is why my thought was we could do some sort of distraction and steal the truck, because then they cannot follow us if we steal their truck and weapons and flee, and then we will give Anton a truck.
Was the truck the only vehicle that we saw there?
Yes, that truck is the only vehicle you've seen.
We only need a distraction, and then we can steal the vehicle and make our getaway, and
right.
Our consciences are free from harm, and also we are safe.
I feel this is somewhat of a one-way plan. If I was to have stolen somebody's vehicle, I probably wouldn't want to return and see them again. I think they might be slightly irritated.
How many men have you killed in your life?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
How many men have you killed in your life?
Well, directly none.
Well then, you should think very carefully about making a suggestion such as this, because I can tell you from personal experience that it weighs heavy on your soul if you take another man's life.
Well, I don't know. I mean, if trying to shoot you or something, I think hitting them with a rock, for example, is fine. And really, it's just the rock that's killing them, not you. I mean, if you were just intending to deal them a slight blow and the rock happened to change its orientation of its own accord, I mean...
And is that what you used when you fought during the war, Professor Courtney? When you fought for your country?
Everybody did their own part during the war, and people with guns were not necessarily the only people helping towards the war effort.
The point I'm making, Professor, is that you are talking in such a blasé fashion about taking the lives of these 3 guards. You do not know anything about them. You simply know that they wear the black shirts.
It is merely logic. If we were to walk up there and do something...
Well, then you go up there and I'll just put my gun in his hand. You go up there, you point that gun at one of them and you kill him and see how you feel about it then.
Right, okay.
Hello there, you hear. You see a form walk over closer. Hello there. Good evening.
Maggie, distract them.
Richard, put the gun away.
No. Richard's very good. Can Richard see this guy?
Oh, yeah. No, he's torching everything. He's walking over.
He's making sure he's got his precise aim on the go.
Oh. Are you pointing a gun at him?
Well, I'm assuming he can't see us.
Well, he's got the flashlight.
He's got a flashlight.
Can we see him well enough to see that whether or not he's a god?
You can make the assumption that he's coming from that direction.
No, I don't. I'm not making any assumptions. I want to know, can I see him well enough to know for sure that he is a god?
You cannot, because you are blinded partially by a torch that's being pointed at you.
But he's speaking English, not Italian.
He is speaking English with an Italian accent.
I'm going to step forward. Good evening.
Are you all right? Oh, you see the flashlight sort of pan around a little bit.
We seem to be having some trouble with our motor.
Let me take a look.
Please, yes.
He spins into action, and you see a guy in a dark cap, dark jacket, dark pants, dark boots, walk over and scan the car with the flashlight and sort of gets a visual head count of all of you. If a little bit, the light is a little bit bracing here in the darkness to be.
He's not carrying a rifle or anything like that. He's not wearing an actual uniform.
Now that you get a look at him, he has a rifle and a pistol, and he is in some semblance of a uniform, and he's cigarette in mouth with the torch sort of panning over the car. Oh, what a wonderful car. Comes around to the side that's sort of in the mud. That looks like a problem.
Yes, indeed. On our way home, and unfortunately, the road was a little treacherous.
Yeah, I see that. He sort of continues to scan the car, and then he gets back around towards the boot, and then eventually back onto the road. I'm
going to try and kind of just casually walk round so that I'm between him and where he came from. I've not got a flipping weapon anymore, unfortunately.
He looks at the car, and you can see his light sort of dance along the hood and then eventually illuminate the bullet hole in the car.
You'll probably see all the dents in the front of the car as well.
And then he sees the dent, and then he sees the windshield, and he sort of scans the group again with the flashlight.
I'm going to just look pointedly at Richard.
Did you have a difficult night?
It's not been easy. That much is certain. I have a request for you, if you'd be so kind. I would like you to lay your weapons down onto the road in front of you, please, and no sudden movements.
He puts the cigarette back in his mouth. Why is that?
Oh, call it a whim of mine. Don't want any trouble. Don't want anybody getting hurt.
Are you sure about that?
Richard is going to try and move away from Fraser so that the guy can't look at Richard and Fraser at the same time.
Mm-hmm. You have a very difficult time doing that, Professor, because he widens his stance when you start to move. This looks like trouble.
Well, it doesn't necessarily need to be trouble, does it? We have somewhere to be. Well, any delays to our journey might be somewhat inconvenient. And you know how these handguns are. These triggers sometimes are a little temperamental, and they can go off, and people can get hurt. And we wouldn't want that now, would we?
No, I wouldn't want anyone to get hurt.
No, splendid. Then we are in accord.
I don't know about that.
Well, I'm sure that you and your two companions a little further along the road will not wish to impede us in our progress. We're all friends here, aren't we?
He points the light a little bit closer, angles it a little bit more over towards the professor. This man is a worry.
He's a worry to all of us, if I'm going to be perfectly frank.
He lets casually just sort of lets the cigarette fall to the ground and casually stubs it out, and then quick as a whip pulls out his revolver.
Is he covering me with it, or?
He's covering the general space, the general group, right? So he could easily get to you, and he could easily get to the rest of you.
As you can see, I am an unarmed man. I'm merely having a civil conversation with you.
His civil conversations include me to put my guns down.
Well, this is precisely what I was concerned about. Now you're pointing a weapon at me. Any civility is lacking on your part. If anything, I would say.
You there? He points the light at you, Professor, and you can see him sort of angle the barrel a little bit over. You have something you want to put on the ground now?
I'm sorry, I don't quite understand. You want me to get on the ground?
No, your hands. Let me see them.
Richard, I think, will have his jacket on, so he'll try and sort of secrete the gun.
Certainly. Sleight of hand, please.
You're flush with luck now, Richard.
Yeah, so Richard rolled 22 over 10. 12 doesn't seem like that much to... Yeah, you can't take it with you, so Richard will spend the luck.
For success. You manage... I'll just say... Spot hidden versus your sleight of hand to see if there's any chicanery going on, so we'll see if he notices. We will give him a die of disadvantage because his attention is divided, though. That seems fair enough. Well, instead of a 06, he's rolled an 86, which is very helpful for you. You do manage to get your hands into a position to show that they're empty without having dropped anything.
Oh, what's going on? I don't understand. We've broken down, and my friend over here, I've just been having an argument with him about firearms and the fact they're dangerous, and you may have heard. I mean...
Oh, no. I did hear. I heard tell of a car who came through our checkpoint a few hours ago. Looked a whole lot like this and ran over one of my friends.
Oh my goodness me, that's terrible.
It is. It's terrible for whomever would have run over him, especially when they said the driver was a young, beautiful woman. Good evening, my dear.
Well, that's strange. I don't even know how to drive a car.
No? This is 100% a fast talk. If that's the move you're making, I will give you a bonus die for fast talk.
Okay, yeah, so it's a fast talk. I put my hands up and the coat falls open.
I am waiting for exactly this kind of a moment for his attention to be severely distracted. And I'm watching not only him but everyone else as well to see which one of us is going to attempt to grab hold of him and disarm him.
It's a 26 over 5, so he does not believe me, I think. But that doesn't make it not distracting.
So he does not believe you that you don't know how to drive a car. And he likely, at this point, for the fail fast talk, is probably fingering you as the person who ran over his friend. That said, he believes you may have been the one who ran over his friend. But that does not mean he's not distracted. So I would just ask, if there is a moment that you think might be clear for you to jump and try to grab this gun, Fraser, this is likely the moment. Because when Miss Bellinger puts her hands up, clearly his eyes are completely distracted. It breaks his concentration for a moment. It's something he's not expecting.
Is he distracted enough that Simon thinks he could grapple him or whatever?
So what I'll say is that...
How close am I?
You're probably about, I would say, 6 to 8 feet, given his, sort of given what was the positioning I'm seeing, the scene, people walking around the car, him eventually covering most of the people. Because remember, not everybody was out of the car. A lot of people were still in the car. I haven't heard Lady Elizabeth get out of the car, nor you. It was basically Maggie, Fraser, and the professor.
Well, Simon had gotten out of the car to check it. I don't know if he'd gotten back in, so I'm willing to say that he's out of the car. I don't think Lady Elizabeth exited the car, though. She wasn't doing anything with the vehicle.
No, you have the highest dex here, so honestly, if you're not going to go and make an attempt, then it'll be Fraser that needs to, if any attempts can be made.
I think both Simon and Fraser will probably jump at the same time. I think Maggie actually has the highest dex, but she's the distractor at this point.
She's got a gun on me. Come on now. Like, pointed at me.
She's laid the goods out there as a distraction. You'd better own it, because...
I mean, I'm just kind of flashing looks at Simon to see if I can suss out what he's going to do. And if I don't get the feeling that he's going to try and... disarm this man, then
oh no, Simon's definitely going to, and it's not going to be a disarm. Simon has his knife. Nobody's been talking at Simon or pointing guns at Simon. It's all but the professor and Jim at this point. So Simon's going to have his knife and slam it into the guy's throat.
All right, so you pull the knife and then leap. It's fighting brawl.
47 under 50.
Okay, I'm going to attempt to dodge that. Which I have with a 0-7.
I'm going to do much the same thing. I don't know what his dex is, whether he's going to act before me or not, but my intention is to do the same. But I'm not trying to stab him or anything. I'm trying to get the gun off him so it doesn't go off and shoot Maggie.
So the way I'm ruling Simon's action as, because he went from 0 to 100 as far as speed, the issue here is that the Blackshirt in question has a pistol aimed. And so he gets a massive dexterity bonus based off the fact that he has a gun ready, which he must use if he's going to use the dex bonus.
If he's intending on shooting a woman who's just standing in front of him with no clothes on and unarmed, then,
I'll say all that to say, Mr. Fraser, take your action.
Now, do I get a bonus die because he's outnumbered?
Yeah, technically.
That is fighting brawl. I can spend it down to a hard success if I need to.
You could, but I'm going to play a hand of fate, and I'm going to make that a success.
I mean, it's a success anyway.
For a hard success.
All right, okay. Oh, okay then. Thank you.
Don't thank me. Thank the backer that loves you.
Thank the backer that loves me.
He does not have a hard success to avert that. So you win the grapple. The intention is to get the gun away from him.
Absolutely, yes. I do not want him pulling the trigger. And even if he misses, it's going to make a loud noise and attract the other two, which I do not want.
Absolutely. So you sort of leap and wrench the gun from the pistol from his hand.
And then I will turn it immediately on him.
Well, he's going to get his action.
Yes, yeah.
So he will take his action to step back from the group because he does not want to be in a melee personally. Obviously, someone's tried to stab him, and that's not super, super helpful. But he will take his action to elevate his voice and scream out for help.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, I would have liked to have kind of grabbed him and kind of got him on the ground and gone away from that. That's all too much in one go.
Certainly. But he doesn't lose his train of vision, of course. It never leaves you, Maggie, because, the guy's going to get stabbed or shot. Anyway, so I guess I would just ask, is anybody else going to participate? We're going to begin a combat round here.
Yeah, Richard's going to hide behind the car. And I'll just tell you why, because it'll be possibly useful. His idea is that there are way too many people buzzing around this guy at the minute, and if he was to try and shoot them, what would probably happen is he'd kill one of his friends, so he doesn't really want to do that. However, if the opportunity arises, he will shoot this guy, but he wants to be behind some cover. And the second part of that rationale is he's aware that this guy obviously heard us. The others obviously know this guy's coming down. So what better position than to be behind a car with a gun aimed sort of down the road?
It does make a lot of sense to me. We'll see how your compatriots take that. All right. So given the highest dex, Miss Bellinger, what are you doing?
So my immediate thought and what I would like to do is also yell for help. I want to play the damsel in distress card. These people he's calling for help. Obviously, I'm in trouble as well with whatever these people did to me. I'm naked in just a jacket. I'm obviously the victim of something.
Obviously. Clearly, to everyone involved, you would be the victim. My question to you is, are you begin to yell for help, I assume, in English?
Yeah. I mean, I barely speak French. Also, I have a knife in my pocket. It's not a pocket knife.
Maggie begins to yell for help. Yell for help, Maggie. It'll be fun.
Help! Help these people! Oh, help! Oh, it's so good that you came along and then our car broke down here.
Simon, you're the next highest dex. You have attempted to stab this man. He got out of the way. He stepped back, and with a face full of fear, he is yelling for help.
Gotta silence him.
Alrighty. Choices made.
And that's a miss at a 69.
Nice. I'm going to make that a success by playing a hand of fate for you. So go ahead and roll damage.
That would be, per the sheet, 1d8 plus damage bonus. Okay, that's 6 plus damage bonus is 7 points of damage.
Very good. So I'll make a con roll. Guess who's not a pulp character? Okay. Where are you stabbing him in general?
I was trying to silence him, so like the throat or the chest, to either shock him out or what. I mean, at this point right now, he's already said that they have identified the car. We're not going to get out of this. Subduing it. At this point, Simon feels they all have to die. It's as simple as that.
Wow. Such choices. So you stab him in the chest, and there is a meaty thunk when this knife goes into his body. There is a powerful sound, and it isn't the sound of you connecting with the knife. It is the sound of his gasp when all the air is forced out of his lungs. And he drops like a rock. But we're not out of combat yet. For those of you, I guess really for everyone, except maybe Simon, because he's so intent on what he's focused on doing, give me a spot hidden roll on what you might see happening.
That is a no.
It's also a fail for Maggie.
That is 1 point off a hard success. I'm willing to spend the luck if necessary.
It is not necessary.
Richard got 40 under 77, which is a normal success.
So what all of you who succeeded, gentlemen, you see two men with lights coming down towards torches coming down towards you from the shack.
Get down, your ladyship.
Richard is hopefully already in the right position to cause them some harm.
All right. You have a gun out, so if your intent is to use it, Professor, go ahead and give me a roll.
So Richard wants to... My knowledge of the rules isn't excellent, but so I know that if he spends a round training it on them, he's got a better chance of hitting them.
Certainly.
Yeah. So, I mean, hopefully they can't see him behind the car and he's, on the ground just trying to aim this thing up so that when they get closer, he can, do a better job of shooting the buggers.
Okay. I mean, you have cover, so that will give you some additional armor should they pierce it. It might also give them a little bit of a difficulty trying to connect with you if they do decide to shoot at you. And you can absolutely hold your aim until you feel it's necessary.
He's not very good with the guns, so he's just trying to be very careful and very, very precise.
Mr. Fraser?
Fraser shouts, "Get down, your ladyship. Get out of sight." And I'm going to run. Are there trees to the sides of the roads?
Oh, certainly, sir.
I'm going to run off the road and just get into a position if there's a tree quite nicely close to the road, just sort of get behind that. Otherwise, kind of get into the bushes. Failing that, just lie down so that I'm out of sight on the other side of the road to where the car is. And with my newly found pistol, which I've taken off this guard, I'm going to cover them as they come down the road.
All right, Lady Elizabeth.
How close are the men?
Oh, geez, they're probably at this point still about... So I'd say it's probably 30 or 40 feet for them. That said, if you're looking in their direction, you do see two lights. You don't see much more than that because of the sort of cascade of darkness that you're under.
Okay, so I'm going to use this turn, since I can't quite see them yet, to get to a better standing position so that when they come into view...
Like in the car, or...
Get out of the car.
Okay.
Because I want to try something once I can see them.
Okay. I mean, you can technically see them now. They're just far enough away.
If I think I can, I want to try and use the fire from my staff, because what I asked for in return for the medallion was unlocking my power, essentially. And I don't know how to do it, but I'm thinking this is a good opportunity to practice. Might as well.
Certainly. Yeah, so why don't you give me a hard power roll?
15 under 70.
You sort of reach within yourself and try to expel that same sort of energy that you did before at the clock tower. And so a lot of the things that your mind works back to is the feelings and emotions that happened during sort of that event, to try to bring out the same reaction from your body. And it's not that you haven't felt yourself be powerful before. You certainly have. It's that you have to somehow bring that out to bear. And the last time it happens, it wasn't necessarily completely under your control. Neither is this time. You feel that welling up of energy inside of you, and it becomes a wellspring, and then something you can't keep in anymore. And you reach the cane, the staff, in your mind out towards them, and you feel this energy expel out of you. And then everyone around you gets very warm, not of their own volition. So I'm going to make a couple of rolls. Okay. Elizabeth, you are going to lose 8 points of magic for this. And then I'm going to have you roll 2d6 for me.
That's a 6 and a 1, so 7.
All right. You now go ahead and roll sand for me.
My sanity is 68.
Not for long.
I know. And I rolled an 82.
Yes. Why don't you lose 6 points of sanity for me?
Oof. Okay. And intelligence roll.
Certainly.
Into 65. And I rolled a 28.
We'll deal with that in just a second. That said, the rest of you warm up a little on a cold night. Not because you want to, but because You're in the line of fire, so to speak. So Lady Elizabeth steps out of the back of the car. As would befit a lady, she sits in the back. And you hear her, I guess, scream. Scream is the best term that I can give it. It's something a little otherworldly, the sound that comes out of her mouth. It's not at all ladylike. A stream of fire exits her body out her staff and hurtles past you, Mr. Fraser. Past you, Miss Bellinger. Past you, Simon. And lands in this sort of, I guess the best way to term it would be water balloon-like splash over these two men. Echoes that come off of this scream from her are reported back by the screams of these two men as they are lit on fire. And so now I'd like everyone else to make me a sanity roll. Professor, we'll pay very close attention to your roll. You're rolling sanity because a sound from one of your fellow investigators, an inhuman one, erupted, and then a gout of flame projected out of their body.
Richard got a 26 under 31.
Maggie got a hard success, by the way.
Ooh, Mr. Fraser, who has a sanity of 36, rolled a 35.
And that's a 43 under 50 for Simon.
I am going to take 1d4 sanity from all of you. Given the severity of this, you'll all lose 1 point of sanity.
Which is just enough to put me indefinitely insane.
Same.
And that should be Richard as well.
I have no idea. Probably.
I do.
I don't believe that is Simon.
It is not you, Mr. Griffith, not at all.
I know is that I've got this guy on the ground. If he's not reacting, I'm just going to cut his throat. Because this fireball just launched over me. But as you said, Keeper Mike, I'm focusing on the target at hand at the moment because I don't like to leave targets behind me.
Certainly. What shall I do with 5 successive bouts of madness? I will use the perspective of Simon as he is the only rational person. I use air quotes, of course, at this point in time. So there are 2 men who've been set on fire. You are doing your yeoman's work, which is to finish the job, to make sure the person at your center, at the most dangerous point close to you, is dealt with. You do that. And as you sort of stand back up after this last rip across his throat, you sort of stand up and look around, and the world's on fire around you. The trees are now erupting in flames around you. The car is highlighted by all these embers and licks of flame that have been left over from Lady Elizabeth or whatever projection caused this fire. And you realize in that moment that the world is not going to be the same. And so that's where I'll call this episode to a close. So thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Horror on the Orient Express. I guarantee a festive atmosphere next time.